My grips?
Okay. So all you got to do is squeeze down as hard as you can.
All right.
Yeah, go.
What was that?
Impressive.
What is it?
57.5. Impressive grip strength.
Is that good?
It's good fucking grip strength. You lift weights, though.
I can't even breathe right now.
Are you ready, Halston? I'm obsessed with grip strength and holding my breath.
What's the average grip strength that would be?
Right around there. That is strong grip strength.
I'm a lefty. Should I try it lefty and see if I...
I love your brain's doing exactly what my brain does.
Yeah.
Is I go, hold on, give me one more shot at that.
Yeah, let me beat that. Yeah, that's my whole fucking life right there.
Hang on, let's upload this.
Yeah,
can I tell you I go back to which I
was going to say I'll throw it on mine after and we can
perfect
if it's in your story.
I go back to I tell this story. I tell a couple stories about you a lot.
Okay.
The number one is being there was like 2 days where we were at your house playing guitar. Remember the first day
was this the old apartment that I lived in out here?
The best fucking apartment in the world.
Yeah. The La Fontaine building.
The best fucking apartment. I drove past that apartment one time, Barry Katz. Barry's such a big part of my life that I don't really talk to him. It feels weird to not, like those formative years of me getting into this business were so Barry Katz heavy. The way he explained life. Listen, Papa, you can be someone like Dane, who his house is his castle. It's where he rejuvenates, and he spends a little extra, but it's a nice place. Or you can be like, there was some writer I forget, and he was like, saves his money, lives in a shithole.
Right, frugal.
Yeah, and I remember going to your house the first time and literally doing this, going like, what?
Right.
It was the most beautiful. Explain to people that don't know this apartment.
Okay. So the La Fontaine building, which is on Crescent Heights and Fountain in West Hollywood, is one of the oldest buildings in Hollywood. It's like 90 years old. The Kennedy boys lived there back, when they were scoundrels. And, even during the presidency, that was like their haven to bring, women.
Yeah.
I knew all this because the landlady, Tilly, who was 90 when I got there, had all the stories. So she was just like a rumor mill of like Steve Martin stories. Belushi lived in my apartment before I moved in there. That was the last place he lived before he died up the street. In fact, the painted bedroom upstairs was Belushi painted it all blacked out because he wanted it totally dark. He slept like all day. Total vampire. Total comedian type. So I was living in there. But here's what people don't realize. For the first half of my career, whether it was living in a nice apartment building or getting myself like a new Lexus, I was like...
Lexus truck. I remember this truck.
Yeah.
I remember that fucking truck.
That's right.
It had, do you don't understand? It had navigation in it. You said, I remember getting in your car and you go, where are we going? And I was like, I'll show you. And you go, just tell me the address. I was like, what is that?
You whip out a Thomas guide and I'm fucking like... But man, my whole philosophy back then, and people, probably don't even believe it, but I didn't know how long the ride was going to last, dude. And to be honest, I grew up a welfare kid in Arlington, Massachusetts. No, I'm serious. I had a lot of fucking insecurity coming up about what my longevity would... I was more cocksured than I was sure,
Yeah.
And so growing up in a family on food stamps and, just trying to get by and working under the table, my mom housekeeping, cleaning people's fucking toilets, I was like, I'm going to live it up. I'm going for it full tilt. If it costs me extra, if I don't have money, if I got to buy this website and I have no more money left... I just was like, I'm going to enjoy whatever the fraction of this career is and hope then maybe it'll go further. So you got to see one of my first cool joints as opposed to the...
You were the first person I knew in this business that spent money on themselves. Took everyone else was like, I'll audition, I'll do this, I'll do that. And you were like, oh no, I drive this ship. And this I tell the story a lot. I've told it a lot on this podcast. It was one of those moments you have in life where it forms the way you look at things forever. You called me up and you're like, hey man, you play guitar? We should play guitar. And then we went over and we were playing guitar and you're like, we should start like some sort of comedy band. And I remember as we were playing, you kept going over to the computer. And I go, what are you doing? You go, I'm replying to fans. You should check it out. It's this thing called MySpace. And I was like, oh, good luck.
Right.
I remember literally you telling me about MySpace. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'll chat online with people. By the way, cut to like fucking 5 weeks later after that, I'm doing coke with some guys in Venice who are the programmers for MySpace, and they're like snorting coke and programming, and we're all partying, but they're still programming. Yeah. And they're like, "Do you know who Dane Cook is?" And I was like, "How the fuck do you know who Dane Cook is?" And they're like, "Dude, he's gonna be big." And I was like, "Oh, you seen him do stand up?" They're like, "No, I haven't seen him do stand up at all. But it's online presence." And I was like, "The fuck did these guys
They're on the
do?"
algorithm of my MySpace.
Yeah. But you told me you get on MySpace, and then at the end of that,
and I said respond to everybody.
And I remember
good or bad, respond to everybody.
Yeah.
It was like the early version of what they would call now like good radio, which is like whatever someone thinks about me, I'm going to respond because it's going to perpetuate. And we want perpetuation more than we want anything else.
Yeah.
You know, because that leads to, you know, consistency, good or bad consistency, but at least people are still talking and hashing it out. And if you're in the center of it and you're bringing people to each other and you're keeping the debate going, well, then that's good for business.
Consistency.
Yeah.
Just keeping your name out there. I like that.
Sure.
At the end of that day, I remember you going, what? I remember like, I think we went to see a movie and you're like, "Hey, you want to do this tomorrow?" And I was like, yeah. And I drink, you don't. And I was like, "I'm going to go drink." And you're like, I don't know. Yeah. And I remember you saying, "What the fuck is this? What is this business? Like, is it?" Bert has said the exact same words to me. Like, what is this? Like, is this all we're going to do is just do spots? Is that it? And I was like, in my head, I was like, I guess. I don't think that way I don't think bigger picture sometimes. I just think like present.
Right.
And I left. I came back the next morning and you were grinning ear to ear and you go, "I just booked a movie." I went, "What?"
Oh my God.
You go, "I'm going to China."
Oh my God, that was 2001.
They called immediately, and you out of nowhere they had seen a tape, and they just called and they said, "Hey, you got a movie." And I
can't believe you and I talked that morning. You're the first person I told.
I know. And you said, "This is what I love about this business.
Yeah.
It's like a lottery ticket."
Right.
You go, "Yesterday I was in the dumps. I'm going to China." And I was like, I remember going like, I got excited for my career because of you. Going like, "Fuck yeah, we can do this."
Dude, 2 weeks before that was actually 9/11. Yeah. So it was like we were all at our lowest point, and then 2 weeks after that, Peter Powell, who is the cinematographer and then director of that movie, called me, and it was so random. Called me from Hong Kong. "You want to come over and do this movie with Michelle Yeoh?" I was like, this is what I want to do. Comedy, and away from comedy during hopefully my days, be filming something somewhere. Yeah. You know? So it was cool, man. I can't believe that was you and I that morning.
Yep.
Fuck. Because I don't know if people know, like, we go back way further, man. Mm-hmm. We start New York City is actually where we kind of broke bread for the first time. Do you remember that first place that we sat down and had a conversation?
Yeah. I think it was right out. Was it?
It was in Times Square.
Was it right after you did your half hour, your presents?
Was it a little sooner? I'm not sure. I'm terrible with time. I've always been
yeah.
We sat at the Howard Johnson's Motor Lodge. Yeah. Okay, here's how you know Bert and I are older. It wasn't even Hojo's, which was the later cool nickname for Howard Johnson's after they were already at their peak. We were at Howard Johnson's Motor Lodge in Times Square.
Yeah.
Eating breakfast for dinner and talking shit, man. Talking about like what we wanted to do out of New York City.
I went to your taping for your 30-minute special.
Yeah.
And I remember I like it's interesting because you know, there's the ups and the valleys of like criticism you've gotten from our peers, mostly
I haven't heard
comics.
What
I'll walk you through it. But like it's so funny. And then I remember the day no, I don't want to do a This Is Your Life with you, but I remember the day you were in USA Today. My dad texted me and he was like, "Bert, Dane Cook is the #1 selling comedian ever in the history." And I was like, "What?" He goes, "Pick up USA Today." And I called you and I was like, "Dude, congratulations." And you were like, and you just thank you.
Yeah.
And like nothing more than that. Thank you. And I remember Jay Moore telling me, "You got to see Dane do stand up." At the time, you were on fucking fire. It was like everything that came out of your mouth was genius. And I remember being like, you were going on stage, and I remember bringing friends to come see you going, "I hope he does this bit.
Right.
I hope he does this bit."
Yeah.
But you see the ups and the valleys, and I've always say this to everyone, dude, you'll never hear a bad word come out. I mean, I'll be critical of my friends always, but like in life, but like you'll never hear me say a bad word about you because, dude, you've made me laugh harder than any one individual. I remember kind of jokes you told that I think about all the time. Do you remember one time Brian Volkowitz had an idea about coin-operated gyms?
do remember that.
And you were like, you ever have an idea so fucking stupid you want to kill them? And he goes, oh, I got an idea. But like, it's so funny about all those, and it's been fun to watch. And I remember and then we'll start talking. But running into you you'd lost both your parents, gone through a bunch of drama.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, how you doing? And you were like, good. And it was like the first time in a while where you were like super grounded. I go, dude, you seem super grounded. Yeah. You were like, have the year I had, and you turn up being pretty grounded.
Yeah, man. That was, it's funny because just kind of going back to the first part of that was like when people talk about the peaks and valleys of a career, or my career in particular, the one part I always like to really make sure I remind people of is it started in a valley.
And by the way, also to note, your valleys are 10 times higher than all of our peaks.
Well, I don't know about that.
My peak hasn't been on a private jet yet. Your valleys have been in private jets. So like your valleys, like to say that your peaks and valleys, your peaks are unmatched by any comic in this business.
The valley was maybe like the 15 years leading up to anything happening, right? So that's
15 before. What do you consider your big break?
Got it. I think that it started to really turn in like 2003. That's really when I started to feel like it was turning into something bigger and more exciting. The pipe dream was becoming the pipe reality. Yeah. So up until then, for me, growing up in the situation I did with the income and all that, it was like any gigs were leading me to a better life. And not a life of fear in being scared anymore like I was when I was younger. So no matter how high up and exciting, and we could talk about those things got, when they would come down like a career does, it ebbs and flows, it was like, I'm never going back to Arlington to fucking welfare. I'll tell you that much. Yeah. So I know what a career is, and a career is it crests, and then it takes a dip, and then you got to reinvent, and you got to grow, you got to rebrand, you have to grow with your fans. They're going to tap out, and they're going to maybe tap in, then you have a second chance to make them go, oh shit, okay, you know what? Yeah, maybe I was wrong. I'm still, and so I kind of saw that early on in those conversations with you. I remember already having the wherewithal to be like, You gotta go through the spanking machine, man. This is a brutal career. Yeah. People don't know, man, what we sacrificed to get here. And I remember those conversations about the Rolling Stone article and all this stuff that we talked about that was happening with you a few years behind me. I said, all that stuff's going to be part of what we are eventually, part of what we are today.
You were the guy everyone looked at as first guy out the boat, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. All of us looked at you as first guy out the boat. We're all storming Normandy. If there's one guy we want to go out the boat first, it's that guy. Yeah. Because in our heads, all of us were like, if it doesn't happen for Dane, it's not happening for anybody. Mm-hmm. You are. I mean, I say you were because I think of ourselves as young.
Yeah. But I do the same thing. It's like I'm the best I've ever been now, but I can still look and go, man, I was rocking and rolling in 1998.
But your catalog doesn't get old. Like when I listen to myself, like on that special, I go, ooh. I listen to your shit, and I fucking played it for my daughters the other day, and they're pissing themselves. Mitch Hedberg, pissing themselves. Dave Attell, pissing themselves. Yeah. And I look at my old stuff, and it's basically me doing an imitation of you. You know what cops hate? Yeah. Listen, it was like, it really is. It's an imitation of you and Attell. There were so many of us that did that.
Yeah. It's funny because from where I was sitting, I thought, if I'm going to be very candid about it, like, there's no like pecking order of who's next to break. It's an impossible kind of wheel that spins. But I felt like, weirdly, maybe my own insecurity, but when I broke, I felt like there was other guys that should have broken before me, that I was almost like I had hopped ahead of people. And so honestly, it's like, I remember going through a stage back then feeling like, I wonder if people don't like that I made it when I did, because what comes with that is a lot of other people being questioned about, why aren't you doing that like that guy? Yeah. So it was a strange kind of yin and yang, because I was happy that I was succeeding, but weirdly I was like, oh, I don't feel like I deserve it any more than some of these other guys that have been, rocking since I saw them in New York City. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
That's why I loved seeing guys, again, like I know you were in the graduating class behind me, but I love seeing all of you guys using every element to get the word out. This is all I did. I was just doing the same thing, but with the first version.
Did you ever lay in bed and go, Like, I mean, I already know your answer, but like, please tell me a different answer. Did you ever lay in bed and go, is anyone going to acknowledge that I created this blueprint of how we're doing it these days? I know you're gonna say no, but like, did you ever go like, no, I get it.
Not
hey,
then.
Get an online presence. Great idea. Wonder where you came up with that. Were you the guy fucking spending a quarter of a fucking $100,000 on a fucking website?
I did years later. Years later, after it was like I was starting to see some other people get some props, I do remember laying there being like, oh wow, I set the template for this.
Yeah.
The thing that I was being hammered by the guys like David Cross calling me a panderer and like low level, the way I was meet and greeting with fans online. Like, I was like, no, that's the enterprise now of what we do. You know, this is a full-time 24-hour job. It used to be 2 hours at night, wake up, get your face ready, do your jokes, and then skulk. This is a full-time job. And I treated it like a full-time job even back then.
How did you get the idea? What was the impetus of the idea of getting onto MySpace and social media the way you did? Like, where did the seed start where you're like, I need a fucking website?
Right. I think the seed started with, well, first of all, I was a gamer. I was a big, like,
dude, I'm telling you, man, people shit on kids on video games. Yeah. But you and Rogan are my two guys that I know that are big gamers. Yeah. And
I used to play Quake 3 with Joe.
Yeah.
Way back.
That guy was putting an extra $25,000 into technology going into his house so he could have a faster fucking speed time.
That's right.
And Joe Stanhope and you were all big proponents of, like, they were blogs at the time, and you were all social media. They were all social media.
Right.
But gaming seems to be the common thread.
Well, gaming was the first thing that I realized, this is like a community online of people from all over the place. I'm playing with a kid in Tampa. I'm playing with somebody else in Montana. I was looking at that like, okay, so I started talking about my comedy while I was, gaming with these people. Not talking with the mic like today.
Yeah.
Like typing in the bottom corner like, I'm a comedian. Yeah, I'm coming to Tampa if you want to see my show. So when I saw the kickback from that, I started looking at websites. I found a website that the U.S. Army and Lenny Kravitz both had really dynamic websites.
There's folklore stories of you that go around comedy. $25,000.
I take my head off. I got
two folklore stories. I'll tell you.
What's the first folklore?
The first one's the 25. Dane Cook paid $25,000 for his first website.
$35,000. I had $40,000 to my name.
Really?
100% honest. Barry tried to talk me out of it. He said, "Why do you need this, buddy? What is this?" My first manager. I said, "This is it. This is the wave of the future, man." I knew. I was a big geek. I was into tech, and I knew with the video game stuff. So what did I do? I parlayed that into not only the DaneCook.com website, but MySpace and Kazaa, LimeWire, Napster, any place that people were being communicative and collaborative online. I spent all day, every day, for years and years, writing everybody back, posting links.
Napster
was
the thing that really fucking gave you a huge bump, because when I went on there for the first time, by the way, I went on probably 2001 is the first time I ever even heard of Napster. Yep. And it was only because of you. I went on, I didn't understand how to get the music off onto my listening devices. And I was having to chat with people to figure out, like, I had to figure out how to chat with people, then figure out how to, you and Mitch Hedberg own Napster.
Well, Mitch was another guy that stuff was, anytime I would upload, I'd see his stuff. And I felt like the web stuff, it was interesting because Rogan actually was the other guy that had a great website. Joe had one of the early websites. And people always say, Joe was in many ways I think he was so busy with his career at that point. Yeah. He had like TV stuff going on that I don't know if he put the same amount of time I was, because I was like a cottage industry writing thousands of people every week. But I used to always look at Joe's and say, this is another guy who gets it, and obviously Joe gets it. He's one of the most entrepreneurial comedians and, moguls of his.
Both you guys are literally lighthouses, like just guys doing it their own way, doing it before everyone else, and following shit that the cool thing is you guys look at things as consumers. So like Joe, I believe Joe looks at his podcast as a fan of shit that interests him.
Right.
Fuck everything else. What would I like? I want this shit. And then people gravitate towards it.
Sure.
You are someone who went, how would I find comedy? How would I, like, you looked at your business as a person buying a ticket. Right. How would I find my favorite comic? That's
I looked at it as politics. If I wanted to become elected, comedian of the year, I was going to try to shake as many hands as possible because I didn't know how long the ride would even last. I was like, I got to get as much buzz out there now so I can pay my rent for the rest of my life because I want to do this.
Yeah.
I want a huge career like the Robin Williams of the world and Eddie Murphy's, but there's a few people like that who get to have that opportunity. So for me, it was like, let's just try to parlay this into any kind of, shortgevity, let alone longevity, So you were at the 2001 taping of the Comedy Central special, which
that thing, it was a game changer for you.
But you saw what happened. That my meltdown turned out to be the instigator of what my career would be for the next 5 years, because I was really upset that day of my taping. Do you remember?
I remember we went to dinner later that night, but I remember you ripping your shirt off and pouring the water on you.
I was pissed at Comedy Central. They fucking put me through so much hell that day.
I remember so distinctly. You and Brian Regan shot that night.
That's right. And I went late. Well, his was started later, and then they put me on the hot seat because they were like, "You got to be wrapped up," and they were stressing me out.
Yeah.
And then I got in an argument with them backstage, and basically the executives were like, you're going to put that bowling shirt on, you're going to do 25 minutes, you're going to do it. And it was like all the love and the fun that I experienced, even in the hardest times of my career, this was no good.
Yeah.
So I went out there, and the first thing, and this didn't end up on any of the DVDs, I can't find this footage anywhere, they didn't give it to me. The monitor of my set list, I got out there, and I don't know if you remember, I said, you can shut that off. I said, you can shut that off. I'm not doing that fucking set. I'm not doing that set. I said, I'm going to do my set. And they were standing in the wings. I get goosebumps thinking of this because they were like fit to be tied.
Yeah.
I said, I'm not doing that. And then I looked at the people in the front row. I go, you guys need to pay attention because they had like pretty people in the front for the on camera. Not real people.
Yeah.
Fake fans.
Yeah.
Not even looking at me, looking at where the cameras were. I say, you guys either move or watch me.
Yeah.
Turn the monitor off. All the water in that was basically like me saying, like flipping the bird to Comedy Central, grabbing the camera. Hey, what's up, everybody? They told me, you don't look at the cameras. Don't touch the I grabbed the cameras. I was like, hi, everybody. What's going on? I did everything kind of the anti-establishment that night, basically because I was so riled up. They were going to make me wear this bowling shirt. I was like, I've never worn a bowling shirt on stage ever.
You wore a tank top.
I did. My mom told me to wear that.
Yeah.
My mom actually told me. Of all people think like, oh, is that a vanity thing? I call my mom. She goes, you should wear a tank top. I go, what? She goes, because you always say like Dice looked different in his leather and Steve Martin in his white suit and Eddie Murphy. And my mom reminded me like, hey, if I want to have a unique identity, I should try to look as different instead of the bowling shirt that everybody's wearing.
Everybody. I had like 9 bowling shirts. By the way, I think I wore a bowling shirt on my premium blend. Like I wore a fucking bowling shirt.
I think I wore a leather that was like 9 times too large when I look back now.
You had a chunky silver bracelet. I remember
the leather jacket was so big that, remember the scene in Beetlejuice where he's in purgatory with the guy with the little head and the big body? That's basically what I look like in my premium blend.
And it was that taping was like one of those times where you go, God, I can't believe I was there. And then that changed the game for
everything.
You.
Yeah, because the Perfect Storm was the special, which was supposed to air. Well, first of all, it was supposed to air a couple of times, they told me. And then, of course, they told me after they were so angry that it might not air because I went late. I cost them $25,000 in overages because I did an hour instead of 25 minutes. I told them, I'm going to do an hour. You're going to put this on a DVD. They didn't even know what a DVD was. I was like, this is extra. This is called bonus footage after the half hour. Nobody had any clue. I was like, am I the only person who understands marketing at this point?
That back then, definitely.
So that night, that stumbling into what I would say now is a not professional attitude. Today it's like I wouldn't do that.
Yeah,
I would suss it out and try to figure out how to be collaborative. Back then I was kind of a punk, and I was just like, hey, you know what? If I'm gonna fail, I want to fail doing my thing my way.
I wish I knew that earlier in this business.
Man, well, dude, you knew it when you needed to know it, because look what you got now, man. You know what you have? It's like I don't really consider anybody comedy purists. I hate that. It's like comedy has to be this or that. No. What I think comedy purism is somebody that has a belief, has an idea, has a notion, absurdist, political, irreverent, fucking rude, vulgar, improvisational. I don't care. As long as it's something that comes directly from who you are and it's part of your constitution.
Yeah.
You've built a career on that. You got to be very proud of that, man.
It took me a very long time to get even a hint. I'm not saying I'm entirely like that, but a hint of that. But a very long time I wanted to play the game. I wanted to wear what I thought was right. I didn't want to rock the boat. If someone said you should wear a lav mic and I'd never worn a lav mic, I put on a lav mic.
Right.
And I really wish I had. It's probably if anyone's young listening to this, fuck everyone and do it your way.
Yes.
Which makes me, not to jump way ahead, but then so what was it like creating, being the only person responsible? You were the only person responsible for your success.
Right.
You got yourself from that first hotel, that first fucking whatchamacallit in New York, where folklore is Bill Bert drove you back to Massachusetts.
Yeah, he did. in his red pickup.
And Bill doesn't ever want to tell anyone that. And he goes, because I always felt like everyone blamed me for Dane going home, but that fucking place sucked. He needed a friend. Bill
was like I know that somebody had mentioned that recently, that like he had an animosity toward that, but in truth,
no. Bill has genuine love for you. But
that
moment, I think Barry blamed
That's
Bill.
right. Well, it's that thing too where we don't realize very early on in comedy, it's like it's all about ball busting and positioning and in chest puffing. Even the managers and the club, everybody's doing it. Everybody's in on the hazing. So I think that very early on, I was understanding that like that was a critical moment, and I did need somebody who really understood me and cared about me, and Burr was that guy.
So to go from that first apartment in New York, which I guess there were cockroaches, it was fucking
bad, terrible.
It was a rough place.
Yeah.
Especially at your age. What were you, like 17, 18?
I was
16?
19 years old.
19.
Yeah.
To go from there to Tourgasm in the round, #1 comic in the world, undisputed, first movie, and you've got nothing but notes. Like, that's the first time I look at in your career where everything dialed in on you, going like, Dane, we want you to open a movie. This is how we do it. And you going, I always wondered about that. Like, if you were like, hold on, guys, this is how I do business.
Right.
And this is how I think it would go.
Right.
Was there some sort of, was it difficult for you to sit shotgun at that point?
I was always pretty good at saying no if I wasn't comfortable. No. And the reason I was good at it is not because I wanted to stand up to some kind of authoritarian idea. It was because I had a lot of insecurity, man. I grew up as like a real introvert and a kid who was phobic, and that followed me into my adulthood. I mean, I'm 46 now, and it's like it hasn't been to the last 10 years that hasn't been something that I understood was like leading me to say no a lot. Saying no was like sometimes fear-based. Like I don't want to do that because I'm not. Yeah, because I'm not. I knew I could always go back. Stand up, that was my comfort zone, you know. So I knew I had it. I could pay the rent. I could pay the bills. So it was a fortunate time to be encumbered because I did end up saying no to a lot of horseshit that in retrospect I know would not have been good. Yeah. Not every choice I made was good, because what happens is once you make it to a certain point, your singular one-man show, so to speak, becomes an industry for everybody else around you to pay their mortgages as well.
Yeah.
So now I had a lot of people depending on me and putting a lot of things in front of me that I started to feel like, oh, maybe I have to do that not just for me anymore, but for the team.
Did you look at, not to get super, super specific and put a pin in it in case we want to take this out, but did you look at managers and agents buying new houses or new cars as a responsibility onto you? Like, I look at my therapist sometimes and I go, yeah, I guess I'm gonna have problems as long as you have a mortgage. Like, did you ever look at things like that and go like you were such an industry? I mean, you were creating millions and millions and millions of dollars for 20 people. I remember we had a friend. I remember we had a friend who we both worked with at the time. I won't say his name, but a really close friend who did our touring, and I remember him just being like, "Hey man, this is fucking amazing. Dane's doing the Boston Garden. I just made $300,000. I didn't have to do anything. This is fucking easy." And then we were in Hawaii together. The next day he goes, "I got fired. I got fired. Do you realize how much money I would have made this year?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, because I think he didn't need you at that point."
Right.
But like, I always wondered, like, if you looked at everyone going like, you were making hundreds of millions of dollars, not you were generating hundreds of millions of dollars.
Right. No, there was a lot in my orbit. I mean, not even just like monetary possibilities from what came from me, but just my name being affiliated with things that I really wasn't even firsthand on. Just people coming and saying, "This is our forte. You want to make $100,000? Like, you do this. We got it." You know, it was like there was a moment where I felt like, and again, I think it stems back to, hey, you know what? This is starting to really work. This is getting to a level now with arenas and all these big opportunities where I'm going, okay, this is the career I've always wanted. Now I have to really figure out how to step up and be my own referee in this, which I never really had to do before. You know, It's like, that's the thing about stand-up. You know, it's a lot of seclusion. It's a lot of just depends on the spotlight, the mic, and us.
And when you're such a driving force that a lot of people go to you for the answer.
Right. And to which it's funny. Now I love being that guy. I feel like I'm a great mentor now because I don't need anything from anybody. I don't have anything to gain from helping or hurting you. So that's the kind of person that I wanted and got around me. Those are the kind of mentors, you know, I met Jerry Lewis. I met Steve Martin. People that didn't fucking need anything from me. So when they told me the truth, I was like, this is the real deal. This is the raw news that I've needed. And now I get to be that for other people. You know, people hit me up and they, you know, ask me a legal, you know, I've been through every legal up and down. I've been through every financial up and down. I've been from every, you know, rumors up and down, like across
You really have.
the
You
board.
really have done it all.
I wouldn't
You've
change
had
it.
You've had every good, and you've had 10 times bad. Like there's.
But you know what success is? I tell people when they go, really, what does success mean? Success, when you finally hit that upper echelon, this is really what it is. It's an introduction to everybody that hates you and resents you and isn't into it, because there are people that are into it.
How do you deal with that?
You read memoirs, you look at the people that you admire, you learn when their crust came down the other side, and you start to understand that, oh, really what this career is about, I believe, one man's opinion, is what gives you the staying power is being resilient. If you're resilient, people respect that more than talent.
Really?
People respect resilience more than talent. There's people out there that are marginally talented, but they are fucking resilient. And that's why we love them. And that's why we continue to support them. I'm not going to name names. Bands I know a lot of people that are more resilient than talented.
Yeah.
For me, I was like, hey, you know what? I know there's one thing I'm good at. It's making people laugh. I know I have that. I suck at a lot of other things, but I'm going to be as resilient as I can. And my obligation, and I think all of our obligation, is be honest with our fans, be brutally honest with ourselves, like Hull crush levels of, you know, like you have to be that kind of honest. And when you can do that, I believe that gives you the resilience that people, more than anything, everybody wants to feel resilient, Bert.
Yeah.
You know?
It's my keg, sorry. It's just cooling. Thanks for joining in, Krups.
I think I had a defibrillator in case you had a heart attack or something.
I wouldn't mind one.
I do believe that, you know, I've broken bread with my heroes. I've talked with people that I adore and admire and wanted to emulate. I sat with Steve Martin at the moment that you talked about, like me hitting the peak. And I remember him giving me his book early.
I remember him. I mean, this is like, and I always say this is my fault, but I do believe it's my strength, is just the way you and Rogan, and I would argue myself, look at this business as consumers first. I also, and I've always looked at it as a fan first. Like I feel very blessed to know you and be your friend. Same with Joe, same with Daniel Tosh, same with all these great comics I know. I feel blessed because I go, oh, thank God. I know I don't do what they do, but at least I can hang out, you know? But I remember you saying somewhere that I think it was Steve Martin told you a secret that you'll never tell anyone.
True.
But the So when you talk about the Steve Martin moment,
he did. I still haven't talked about what that is. He said something to me at the comic strip in New York City when he surprised me and showed up and watched my.
Lorne Michaels was coming to watch you.
That's right,
yeah,
man.
Dude, trust
you know
me,
more about my damn life than I even do, man.
Dude, well, you know, when you're
like a historian.
Your takeoff was inspiring for all of us.
It's nice to feel that now. And I really do feel that now.
No one's gonna have that. No one's gonna ever have. We're not gonna see that again. That'll never happen the way that did. Wow. It's a singular moment in the history of comedy that only you get. That's it. I mean, but you don't like.
It was a turning point.
It changed the business, man.
It was the turning point of the way civilization communicates with each other. Mm-hmm. This new thing, the internet, this new way of like getting information and data. But when Steve Martin gave me his book, I could tell you what he wrote me in the book. I tell people sometimes, when he wrote Born Standing Up, and the greatest compliment maybe of my life, and somebody who looked at him as somebody, he did Madison Square Garden. He's a guy that I want to, follow. I want to entertain the masses. And he wrote on the inside cover, he said, just scratch out my name and replace it with yours, and this entire book's about you.
Wow.
And it was just I remember getting really emotional. I was like, my hero believes that I've made it to his equal. And then
I mean, in essence, I mean, if we do the math, Steve Martin was doing arenas.
Yeah, Dice.
Then Dice, and then you.
Yeah.
I mean, now I think arenas are a tad bit more accessible. When I say that, but I mean, still, there's only really 5 people doing arenas right now.
Yeah, I think that there's, I think that the comedy world, people have, I think right now, a really insatiable appetite for more than just even comics being funny, because I've done a few podcasts. I'm telling you something, man. I've never gotten the kind of reactions off any late night TV show that I'm getting from conversations like this.
You didn't do them. When we all started them, you did Rogan.
Right.
One time, I think you came in and did Rogan. You did the Icehouse Chronicles one time.
Yeah. I did like a WTF.
Yeah, and that was it. I mean, that you just were, and like I'd hit you up and be like, "Hey man, if you ever want a podcast," you're like, "Yeah, I'm busy, maybe." But so I think people are, you're someone who, it's just like a huge get. It's like a huge. People are excited when they see your name on a podcast list. They're like, "Shut the fuck up!"
It's cool.
And so, yeah. I mean, and you're, like I said,
I think for years I might have been a little bit not as quick to jump on it, because I had spent probably an unhealthy amount of time online and doing that decade of grunt work online. I loved it, but still it was a lot of work. And so for me, when it popped and it started becoming like podcasting, I was like, I've just done that for 8 years. Yeah. I did a podcast before it was even called podcasting. I had a thing called the Jukebox on my website. It was called The Voice of Doom, which is a term I got from Barry. And I would upload rants, MP3 rants. Yeah. And so I was like doing a daily podcast for so long that I think when it caught, for me, I didn't really see the forest through the trees at that point. I was like, oh, I did that, I'm done. Yeah. Not realizing it's going to become something that's actually a critical part of entertainers, getting their messages out there.
It's an extension of my social media. I mean, I think I'm not a good Twitter guy. I've never been a big setup punch guy. My spoken word is much more direct and clearer than my written word, and that's why Instagram and podcasting has been very easy for me to morph into. Mm-hmm. And in all honesty, I do it in a selfish way because I don't get to hang out like with 2 kids and fucking doing everything I can. I can't even hang out at the store this week, and so to get to hang out like this is fucking is amazing. What do you think, if you could pinpoint just 2 mistakes you made in your career where you're like, that was a fuck up, that was a big mistake, like, and then I'll tell you my 2 that I think you've made. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking.
You're like, and then I'll tell you my 10 that I think I made. Mistakes. I think that, well, I can tell you very honestly, I don't want to get too deep into it, but I trusted the wrong people.
Oh yeah.
And the mistake there was
it just not to get into that at all, but was it just things were moving so fast? Because I trust.
No, it was that I was literally didn't suss people out the right way, that any grown adult should be responsible to go like, let me just dot the I's and cross the T's. Yeah. And I let some people too close that did a lot of harm. Yeah. So there was moment in my career where it's like I'd hit the peak. I knew I was coming down some kind of other side, and then I was hit with like all these financial problems because I had bad people in my corner. And so mistake number one was almost losing. Well, I did lose everything. Really, people don't know that. Like, I had made what I thought was money for the rest of my life, and it was all stolen from me from a bad business manager who also happened to be family. And so that 2010, I was basically a brand new comic again. I had to start over. Everything that I'd saved, all the movies, everything was gone. And the only thing that I had left was a few $100,000 in some stocks. And I pulled it out, and I rented those arenas. That year of 100 arenas, every month I rented like a handful of arenas. Basically, like, you can rent an arena like a hall. And that's all I did. I rented every arena $75,000 on a Wednesday night. It's an off night. There's no game. And I walk out with the door, $250,000, pay my commissions, and then the rest of it was mine. And I went, this is working. So I rented 10 more. And then I rented fucking B arenas in like Canada. And I was making even more because that cost me $30,000 for a Tuesday night.
Shut up.
Yeah. That when I go on stage now, this tour, anything that I do, Bert, when I put my hand on my heart and I go, thank you all so much for coming out, it's like these people helped save my life.
Yeah.
These fans, after I was already the hot thing, and now it was my turn was over. It was time for somebody else to be the hot thing.
And you to take a year off and travel the world and
I did.
Write a book, and you wake up one day going, fuck.
And now I'm like, oh, wow, I'm not safe anymore. In fact, I was the closest I'd ever been to the kid from Arlington who had no money and was on food stamps. It was scary, man. It was really weird. My story, and it's like, I'm not trying to, this might come off wrong, and I hope it doesn't, but like, I was like a rags to riches story. I had to make it twice in order to feel like I feel today, which is like, okay, I'm safe and I'm protected, and you know, I'm looking okay for the future, for the medium to long term, you know?
So when you did that arena tour, you were doing that 100 arenas, you were doing that independently.
Yes.
You weren't going through Live Nation and AEG.
No, I think they might have jumped on a couple that like they had, it was like in their contract that they ran. But for the most part, those were just me doing it myself and then selling it out without spending any money on promotion.
No marketing. It's all social media.
One click. Hey, you know, Florida, boom, one click.
Folklore Dane Cook story. You ready?
Yep.
I'll tell you another one. They keep coming up. I tell this all the time. It's my favorite story to tell about you. If it's not true, just giggle and say, sure, that happened. But it's my favorite story ever because there is an independent feeling as a comic when you make it your own way.
Yes.
When you get yourself there. No,
yes.
I'm not shitting on guys that got on sitcoms and blew up that venue, blew up that way. But when you did the work, you walked into a meeting and you were trying to sell yourself to someone and they didn't get it. They don't know what do you mean? I got a pretty big social media presence. I don't really see that as a social media presence. Let me show you something. Open a cute computer and you put online.
In the meeting. Yes.
Tell the rest of the story then.
It's true. This is 100% true.
Everybody, this is one of my favorite Dane Cook stories.
So it was at the time, Instant Messenger was like the big thing. It was like the version of text now, AOL Instant Messenger. Mm-hmm. And I had what I knew is hundreds of thousands of people that had followed me on there because for years now I've been talking to everybody and giving everybody. So in the meeting, I remember looking over and this high-ranking executive at the place, he didn't know me. He was in there, looking at his watch, and I could tell I was like, oh, I'm not getting any deal from these guys because they don't, comedy, bottom of the totem pole. Who is he? And I go, hey, can I use your computer over here? Can I show you something real quick? Yeah. I said, because I don't think you understand what's happening out there right now. I said, I may not be on like late night talk shows or Saturday Night Live cast member. I go, but something bigger is happening. Okay. I said, can I use your computer? I go on. I download the AOL Instant Messenger. I logged in. I go, now wait. And it was like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bring, bring. Bring, a few instant messages. Bring, hey Dane, bring, what's up, man? Bring, are you gonna be playing Quake later? Bring, what's going on? Bring, I saw the Comedy Central. Bring. Freezes the computer. Thousands and within minutes. That's how tapped in and connected I was with my fans. I got a deal in the room that day. In the room.
Love that story.
Signed, sealed, and delivered. They were like, we're going to give you a bunch of money to, sit around and pretty much do nothing, but go do your shows at night and maybe try to develop something. It was, man.
Story.
It was such an unbelievable, gratifying moment. like to be like, I'm doing it on my own laurels.
Oh, I fucking love that story.
Yeah, 100% true. Exactly how it happened.
So when did you get to take a break? Like when you do the arena, the second 100 arenas.
Yeah.
When did you? I want to find out how you got to where you are now, because you are in a place that I think I strive for. But I'm not. I don't know if I'm ever going to get there. But like, you're in a place, it seems to me, and it's just really online watching, is that you have a really close group of friends, a great girlfriend, and you tour, but you live life. You're present in a different life than comedy, which is not who you were. Younger, you were at the club every fucking night.
Constant.
Yeah. You had a girlfriend, but that ran side chick
100%.
to your career.
Yes.
And now it seems like your career is side chick to your life.
Well, there's a balance that like I had strived for, and maybe obviously, growing up as a comedian, as a young man in comedy, all the perks that go with that for years of, girls and the attention, and then suddenly you're in your mid 30s going, oh wait, I don't party. It's really not my thing. So I started looking for something that was more serious. It took me a long time, man, to get to a place where my comedy and my personal life finally were balanced and really enhancing each other. Like, I'm enjoying my personal life because of the success that I've had in this longevity now that I've created. Getting to a point in my life before this tour, especially the last 3 years, where I could say a word I always wanted to say about myself. I'm seasoned. I'm seasoned.
You were seasoned like 10 years ago.
No. What's amazing is I look back at 10 years ago, and I could tell you what I was still lacking. And you know what it was that I have now?
What?
Introspection.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm so much more introspective now. And if you see my new show, what I didn't want to have happen is, hey, I'm introspective, but it's going to be like modeling and not as high caliber funny. I wanted the LPMs. Yeah. So I finally got to a place where I can use all the stuff that people have seen before. Those are all still organic. But now I can be observational and introspective. I talk about how things hurt and have thrown me off my game. I can own all my defeats because they led to victories. That's a entirely different pedigree that I love to bring to the stage at this point. So I'm having more fun than even 10 years ago on those tours.
I always liked the size venue you're playing right now. Personally, I believe is the perfect size venue for comedy.
Oh man, it's great.
I mean, what's an arena like? Like, what's that?
Yeah, so
I mean, walk me through, because someone said to me, I was talking to Josh Wolf.
Have you ever done? What's the largest? Have you done an arena?
The Chicago Theater is the biggest I've ever done.
I just came from there.
I know. I just saw the pictures. It's fucking beautiful.
Yeah,
it was fucking great.
Best. Yeah, these are the greatest rooms.
It's the greatest size rooms. I think the Wilbur's an amazing size room. The laughs you get, but that's Boston. And so a 1,200 seater in Boston is the equivalent to a 3,900 seater anywhere else, because Boston's so fucking aggressive.
Yeah.
What's an arena like? And I say, like, walk me through like beginning to end, because I was talking to Josh Wolf about theaters, and I was saying, oh, I fucking love it. I love having a tour bus. I love being outside the venue, knock on the door. He's got 3 minutes left, and you just walk off the tour bus, and you literally walk. There's a Tito's and soda waiting. You grab it. You walk on stage. Fucking amazing show. Back on the tour bus, and he was like, whoa, what's an arena like? Like, you have to do a sound check, I'm assuming. You have to be there early. I'm sure. I would imagine it feels sterile. I don't know anything about arenas.
Well, okay. So what I did was, the thing that was cool and that made it not sterile was I hired a tour manager. This is back during like that whole run of arenas. His name is Al Dotley, and he toured Zeppelin. He toured Elvis. He toured Ozzy. He toured everybody I loved growing up. So I had somebody who was helping to create my set. I wanted it to look like a boxing ring as an homage to my dad, who was a boxer. So that whole in the round look was actually thinking about my dad being in the boxing ring. I'm going to be in a circle. My dad was in the boxing ring. And Al Dotley helped me to make that. And then hanging out with him and getting that experience of like, how did these other guys build their careers to that level? You were there with them. He was with Elvis. He was with all these guys. So I felt like I was a student of even the lineage of what touring meant and stuff for like large scale. He'd done Carlin. He'd done like guys that, took it to that upper level. So I was learning. I was excited. I was learning about directing myself. Because I wanted to become a director just in entertainment and telling stories. So I was getting this other perspective of how do you make what's happening on stage interesting so that I can help other artists someday. I'm starting to direct. I want to direct other people's comedy specials or other bands, content. So I was learning that. But then what was happening was an arena show is an event. It's an event. It's a different beast than just a theater, because a theater is essentially a big club if it's built right.
Yeah.
Right? We feel like we have some kind of prowess in control over the theater. An arena, you lose some of that because a person sitting in section Z up on the third tier balcony and they're having a few pops, if you're not keeping their undivided attention, you're in some trouble, man. Because boredom makes people say and do weird shit. If you start like zoning out and looking somewhere else during a comedy show and you're throwing a few back, you're going to hear it.
Yeah.
So the moment you meet the stage at those large scale shows, it's through your entire body. You're emitting a feeling of, hey, I got all of this. I got all of you. You're all close to me. And I would look up at that balcony. I couldn't see. I could see silhouettes. But I would look up at that balcony like I was fucking looking right into you. If I heard somebody go, woo, too long, you'd look, I'd point up. I'd be like, yeah, that's right. I heard that, because I wanted to keep everybody wrangled. Like, I got it.
You were the first person I to this day, and I swear on my children when I say this, I look at balconies because I never saw anyone look at I never seen a balcony before I went and saw you at the Laugh Factory, and you used to work the balcony in the Laugh Factory. Right. It was very natural to you. And I never, when I did the Laugh Factory, I looked straight ahead.
Right.
I played to the people I could see, and I was like, oh yeah, they're up here too.
Yeah.
So,
you know why I did that?
Why?
Because I have the same deep set eyes and like whatever this, Cro-Magnon for, and so I get shadow.
Yeah.
So for me, it was a way to keep the spotlight on me and see my facial expressions. Because if I keep my head down, I started looking like fucking Frankenstein or something like that. It wasn't a good thing for me to be just looking down at the very front.
To this day, when I will catch myself, like I was at the Tampa Theater, I think it's got 3 levels the other day, and I was looking up. And and every time I do, I think of you looking. I go, because it's not natural to me. It's just natural to me is like to be talking,
right?
But to look up and play the room, I always think of you.
Yeah.
And I was in the Sands in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and I hadn't done a sound check. I didn't know the room, and when I got on, I'd never performed with a spotlight before, and it really threw me off.
Yeah.
And so you can't see if you're on a spotlight, you can't see anything, and. But you
should be able to see, but they probably had it on the highest setting. You were in a high beam at that point.
And I could see a little bit of a balcony to the right.
Yeah.
So I played to them a little bit, and then I played to obviously the balcony on the left. And then I got done the show, and I go to say goodbye to the staff or whatever. I go out on the stage and find there's no balcony on the left.
You're just looking up into the rafters
the whole time. Everyone must have been like, "What the fuck? What the fuck is he doing?" I love it. Second biggest mistake in your career.
Second biggest mistake. Well, I put this as a mistake that ended up turning out to be something of good fortune, but later is 96. I was still in New York, coming back and forth.
Yeah.
And Saturday Night Live, it was the year Sandler left.
Yeah.
And they wanted me. They had called up my team and said, we need a young, white, energetic guy who plays guitar, which I did too, to replace the Sandler, which was going to be a big, big loss for them. And I went to... I was still dealing with a lot of anxiety at that point. Like,
that's one of the things I think no one really knows about you, but I know about you, is that as gregarious and extroverted as you may seem on stage,
sure,
you really are like just a very regular person, if not introverted.
Yeah, still more. I mean, I'm not as much an introvert as at that time, but I had a lot of fear, man. That's all I can say is like I still had a lot of fear in me. A lot of things were driven in the on-stage persona was who I wanted to be. I wanted to be that guy that had the answers and the timing and was cool. And because I didn't feel, the moment my foot stepped into reality off the stage, I didn't feel like any of that stuff. Yeah. None of it. It took me many, many years to finally realize, wait, no, I am the guy. I'm the guy on stage. That's me. I need to be him everywhere. It took like 15 years to go, I've been playing the part of me more than I'm actually being in my life. So it was like 96, they wanted me to come in, and I went to Rockefeller Plaza, and I had an anxiety attack outside. Not a full-fledged, like, hands frozen and, 17 minutes of rubbing your own legs and breathing. Like, I was having a pretty hardcore anxiety attack. I remember I had these Ray-Ban sunglasses on, and I sat on a bench outside of Rockefeller Plaza. I started to cry. Tears streaming. I was looking up at the building. I went to a payphone. No cell phones, I don't think, at this time. Or I didn't have one. Went to a payphone, and I called and said, I'm not going in. I'm not going in for the audition. I can't. And my throat's closing. I had so much fear and anxiety. And also, I knew people that were on the show, and I knew that the politics of what it was behind the scenes was like a pirate ship. Yeah. That's not an easy, none of this is easy, this industry. It is cutthroat, it's hard, it's competitive. But that spot, even more so, to get on camera. I didn't have that fight. I had no spine at that time. I had what looked like it from on stage, and so I didn't go. And I ended up back on the road, and 2 years later, kind of languishing out there, and with a toothache root canal I couldn't even afford to get fixed, and saying to my family, like, I messed up. I think I messed up. I think I just missed this great, great opportunity to Fallon got it. And of course he was awesome on it, but I looked and was like, I could do that. I mean, those are parts I could play, and I'm in that realm of whatever it was.
I find myself hysterical. I could laugh at myself.
I like to break during every skit.
I can barely get through a scene acting. I could do this.
So it was like, it always, it kind of haunted me for a lot of years until things started to turn into my own career and incarnation, and that's when I realized, oh wow, I'm going to get to Saturday Night Live, but it's going to be in a different way.
What's it like hosting Saturday Night Live?
The greatest.
You murdered that.
Oh man, thank you.
Murdered
the
that.
Greatest.
Did you host it once?
Twice.
That's the first time. The first time I've watched the first one live. I remember watching it live. I think I was at a comedy club.
Yeah.
And they had it on. They were like, "Hey, Dane's doing Saturday Night Live," and I was like, "Whoa!"
It was amazing. Season closer, and then I think I'm the only person to ever do an episode 2 episodes later, because Carell opened the next season, and then I came back for the second week. So
You were great in that movie with Carell, by the way, too.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that was
What was your favorite movie you've done?
Mr. Brooks was definitely...
Dude, you fucking murdered that. Yeah. I was on a plane, watching that on a plane.
Yeah.
And I was like, motherfucker. You invested in your own short film, Spiral, that you shot with Jeff Nichols, I think.
Which got me
the movie
in Hong Kong. That you and I talked to.
Yeah. I went to the premiere of Spiral.
That's right. Was that the Roosevelt? I forget. It was
I want to say it was on the Sony lot.
Oh man.
It was on, like, I think it was on a lot, because I don't know if you remember this, but Bender from no, that's John DiMaggio.
Bender from Breakfast Club?
Bender from Breakfast Club.
Judd Nelson?
Was that your screening for it?
Oh man.
I was sitting like 2 rows behind Judd Nelson, and he had a broken arm.
I remember that.
I remember he was like, I was like, I brought a bunch of chicks that all really
Bender
partied.
At this short film?
And I was like, I remember 2 things. I went to the screening you had, and I told the girls I was with, this guy's fucking hilarious. You're gonna love this.
Oh Jesus.
And this
is not a funny movie.
And
it's like a graphic rape scene in it.
Yeah, there's a graphic rape, and they were fake laughing at the beginning, and everyone's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And they're like, "Come on!" They're like, "He's not that funny in it." And I go, "I don't think this is a comedy."
Yeah.
And we had gotten
the furthest thing from.
We'd gotten buzzed before we walked in, thinking we were gonna laugh, and and then they were like, "That was not funny at all."
That was the ultimate buzzkill.
But then someone said, I forget that. What's that? Judd Nelson. I go, Judd Nelson broke his wrist. And one of the girls I was with, she was like, he does a lot of coke. And I was like, oh, okay. That makes sense. You don't see grown men with broken bones often. So,
you don't.
No. I remember Pablo Francisco broke his leg. And I was like, how did he break his leg? They were like, he was in a limo. And I was like, huh? I ran into Pablo the other day at the airport. He looks like he's doing good.
Oh, good, man. He's a funny cat.
Yeah,
funny dude.
There was a group at that time that partied and didn't party. Why had you never? What was it that never?
Grew up with
you never have you ever
dad
had,
who drank.
have you ever had alcohol?
No,
never even had it.
I've never had a sip of alcohol or done a drug ever.
What's it like?
I don't know, because I don't know the alternative. I don't know, like, I can't.
It's awesome.
I know. Everybody tells me I'm missing out. I think that growing up with a dad that drank, and I saw, I don't want to get too, like, heavy with it, but, like, I just saw a brilliant guy kind of get in his own way a lot, and I knew that ran in my family. Yeah. I'd seen it with other relatives. I just kind of thought, you know what? Maybe I can make something more of myself. Like, they're all very smart guys, and there's a lot of real tenacity. But that tenacity worked against them once they started, getting sozzled too often. I just decided it wasn't something I was interested in right away. I didn't honestly say I'm not going to drink or do drugs for the rest of my life. I'm 46. I kind of can't believe I've never tried anything either, but I haven't.
Really? Does your chick drink?
She has drank. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's not something you like. What do you do at the end? How do you end a day?
I get in bed.
Shut up. Like one of these sociopaths who close their fucking eyes? My wife does that like a fucking Mormon. Just, I'm done thinking. Clunk.
I just love to work, man. I like to get home. I mean, for me, an unwinding night is I still do some video game stuff.
Do you really?
Yeah, it's kind of like, for me, gaming is not... I'm competitive, but it's like meditation.
Do you do like online community gaming still? Like talking shit to people? And
not really. I'll do like team based with guys I know.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm not in like Twitch and yammering with other.
That's how everyone makes millions of dollars these days, I guess.
It's very lucrative. I mean, honestly, it's like, I could definitely understand why people would do that, and I think it's a great place to build your fan base out, whatever you're doing. But yeah, no, I tend to just, it's more for me.
What games do you play?
PUBG, PlayerUnknown Battleground. It's like a battle royale game. You're playing with 3 guys, and you have to beat everybody else that's online. There's 100 people. Single shooter.
Yeah. I get my vision gets fucked up, and I get dizzy.
We come over and play at my house, Bert.
Really?
Yeah, I threw that shit on a movie screen. Yeah, I built a room for gaming.
Shut the fuck up.
It's a 200. It's like the size of this whole. This is small. Your TV.
Oh, come on!
And I project.
That's the biggest one they had at Costco.
I 4K projected it up there. So now when I'm gaming, people go like, "Man, how'd you make that sniper shot?" It's like, because I'm playing on a screen the size of my fucking wall.
Fuck.
Same thing, because it's like if I play on a small screen, my eyes, I'm like constantly trying to like.
Dude, I am on my phone constantly. And my eyes are fucking shot. What time do you got to get out of here?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
No rush at all.
All right, nice. What was it like spending money, like legit spending money? Your first house, I'm in ballpark at $6 million.
In and about.
Yeah. What was it like spending $6 million?
First thing that I ever bought was my mom a house many years earlier. Yeah.
Tell me about your mom.
Yeah. Oh, the greatest, man.
Seems like you and your mom were very similar, right?
Thanks for asking, because not a lot of people actually really ask. You always talk about your dads. It's always like guys talk. My mom was my champion. My mom was like a funny woman, very physical, very committed to her joke when she would make a joke or whatever, do something in public that was going to be embarrassing, but she'd get a laugh with it. Yeah. She was kind of the first person I saw put herself out there. In a like a spectacle kind of way. And the first person to ever tell me that I was more than what I thought I was. I was a self-loathing introvert who felt ugly, had a lot of acne, didn't have any friends, and she was the one who, in Vicious Circle, when I'm doing the voice of my mom going, "They're just jealous of you, honey. You have everything in front of you." That's my mom. She would literally pep me up, and she would tell me all the things that I was going to do in comedy before I even did them. Really? She would tell me, I'd see Dice. I loved Dice. I'd watch Dice. She'd say, very casual, like cavalier. You're going to do that, honey. You're going to do, that'll be you. You'll do that.
Really?
You'll do that. Real, like, not even like, I'm going to just keep saying it until you believe it. You'll do that. You're going to be on there.
Yeah.
You'll meet him someday. It's so funny. I've been talking with Dice. We've been talking.
I saw online
we're working on some.
He said something really sweet about you.
Dice and I we're talking.
The only compliment I ever got from Dice was, but it was a third hand. I never got it directly. Was I guess he was at a club or whatever, and they were playing the videos, and I'm shirtless, and he comes out and he just goes, "He's got no shirt on." And they're like, "Yeah, he doesn't form his shirt on," and he just goes, "He's got no fucking shirt on. He's got no shirt," and he just started laughing. "He's got no shirt on," and then he watched the Machine Story, and he was like, "Oh, he's a good comic. He's got no shirt on." he's got no shirt on. He could and they were like, he loved it. Now, it was like the greatest compliment because Dice, all of us, Dice was our heroes.
Yeah. I mean, HBO specials and all that, Kinnison and watching all those guys. But
was your mom into comedy?
She loved comedy. But she also was like, she was also pretty fickle. She could have been like a booker. My mom knew. My mom
been a booker.
My mom would go to the club, ready, and she'd go like this. I remember being on a show one night with Patrice O'Neill, Burr, Gary Gallman, and maybe like 4 or 5 other guys. After the show, I go, okay, Mom, you saw all of us. What's your prognosis? And she goes, Patrice is going to be one of the biggest comics once he figures out A, B, and C. She said, Burr's going to make it. He's very funny. And she said, and Gary Gallman is one of the smartest guys. He's going to make it. She goes, everybody else on this show, they should just go home. She's like, they're not interesting. I didn't even remember them. She remembered their names.
Yeah.
And she called on those 3 guys and basically like put her Donna magic wand on them to say like, you're going to go far. She had a good eye.
What a great group to start with.
My graduating class, Robert Kelly. I mean,
Robert Kelly,
great.
Burr, Goldman,
Bob Marley. I know Bob Marley. Not a lot of people know Bob.
Man, everyone should. That guy is fucking. When I think of that, when I first moved out here, the rotating cast at the Laugh Factory was you, Harlan, Bob Marley.
That's right.
That's right. Nick Swartzen would get up every now and then, but he was way like he was younger.
He was like the class behind mine.
And so you guys all started in Boston?
Yeah. We used to all go to Bennigan's after the show at Nick's downtown and just...
For real?
Yeah. Sit around, all of us. It was kind of wild to think back now and go like, man, I'd give anything to have that whole group of guys back together sitting around that table again, you know?
Dude, I think about Patrice.
Young
I think about Patrice a lot. Patrice was... when
Did you have a good rapport with him? Everybody has a very different kind of Patrice reaction. And mine was obviously like... He's in my heart, you know. Sure. I've got his hat. His mom, after he passed, gave me his favorite the leather Boston hat. First thing I see in my office.
Patrice was very pivotal to me because I was working the door at the Boston Comedy Club. Patrice wasn't technically passed at the cellar, and so he would just hang out in front of the Boston with Voss and Bobby and Norton.
Yeah.
And
in front of the fire station there and just talk shit. Yeah.
And just bullshit. And so then we all did Scotland together, me, Patrice, and Voss.
Yep.
I came out to LA. I did a set at the Laugh Factory, and got a deal. And like it was like a big set. I got a deal. I didn't get a deal then, but like they said you were going to get a deal,
sure,
going to get meetings, but I had to go to Scotland first. And in Scotland I called and they're like, yo, CBS wants to offer you a deal. You know, the way Barry used to do it. They'd offer you a deal for 120. Barry goes, they're at 60 right now. I think I can get them to 120.
That's great.
And so I got a deal.
How exciting was that?
Oh, it was great. It was like I got a deal.
You're doing comedy in Scotland and you're going to get a deal so you get home and man.
But the ebb to that flow, the valley to that peak was that I was getting a deal in front of Patrice. And so Patrice and I were there every day. We have breakfast together. Voss would go play golf. Me and Patrice would fuck around all day, go do our spots. He would stay out because he wanted to bullshit. Yeah. I'd drink. Voss would go home.
Right.
And I got a deal in front of Patrice. I got the phone call, got a deal, and got a TV show. And I shared the good news with Patrice, which was like, if you knew Patrice, you're like, you didn't want to share good news with Patrice. And I had a deal a year before with Will Smith.
Do you remember what he had said when you told him?
I remember 100%. His first words were, "I feel bad for you."
Oh my God.
He was eating eggs over easy with blood sausage.
Oh God.
And he was like, with ketchup all over it.
Yeah.
So I feel bad for you, Bert. And I said, why? I go, Patrice, this is what we want in this business.
Yeah.
He goes, no, what we want in this business is a career. What we don't want is just to get shot up real quick and then have it all taken away. Right. He goes, let me tell you something. And I don't mean this from a shitty position. By the way, this is some of the most lasting advice I've ever held. I've hung my hat on this advice.
Okay.
He goes, you're going to go to Hollywood. You're going to make some money. You're going to get on TV. You're going to have a deal. Maybe that'll go somewhere. Maybe it will. But at the end of the day, when it all goes away, you still won't know how to do stand-up. You've only been doing it a year and 6 months. And he goes, I may not have all those deals, but I can do stand-up. See, my foundation is here.
Yeah, right.
Your foundation's all the way here. So you may go all the way up here, but when you fall, you got to go all the way back to the bottom.
Right.
And I remember thinking at the time, he doesn't know what he's fucking talking about. I thought it was fame-based. I thought stand-up was about fame. The more famous you were, the better you were. Right. I didn't realize it was about talent.
Right.
And so I'd go up here, I move out to LA, I start working, everything goes away, and I fall all the way back to the bottom, and I am now hosting at the Hollywood Improv. I had tons of money. I'd been on TV.
Yeah.
I was now hosting again at the Hollywood Improv, and I couldn't get spots anywhere. And Patrice came out, and Bobby was living out here at the time.
Yeah.
And Patrice came out, and Patrice was like very compassionate to me. Mm-hmm. He was like, he had just done a Showtime special, the 30-minute Showtime him and Goldman did, and he was like, I'm glad to see you building your foundation. And I was like, oh, thanks. And he was like, it's all you got to do. Just keep building your foundation. I literally took that advice and said, here's what because getting everything taken away from you when you don't have a ton of talent, to, so to speak, to back it is terrifying. Because what you're laying in bed for is hoping for someone to make another mistake, I need to be lucky again. I'm the luckiest guy in the world. And I worked on stand-up that's all I fucking worked on for maybe like 6 years straight. It was sets every chance I got up, sets on the road as much as I could. And when I got to a place where my foundation was here, Patrice was, I think I got on track, but I was headlining and I was like, oh, I'm ready. And I was like, that's the best advice. And now it's like right now where I am, it's like you can't. My foundation was taken away when Travel Channel fired me. My career was taken away when they fired me. But my foundation was so close to where they had me that I didn't fall. I just went, time to keep moving forward.
Yes,
it was the greatest advice. And it's like I want to say that if you really loved Patrice, you knew his eccentricities, his flaws as well as you knew him.
Right.
But I love that guy.
He was a truth reveler.
Oh.
He reveled.
He loved to be brutally honest.
Yeah, and what he would do, which I thought was so. He did a lot of stuff I felt like he early on was him and Chappelle are the two best comedians that I ever saw, like at what you would consider their formative years, already like looking like pros and already coming across like some next level shit. But Patrice would like dip out for a little bit, and I'd say to him in Boston, I'd be like, where you been the last month? And he'd go, I just didn't have anything funny to say, man. He'd just stop. He'd stop. Yeah. You and we might be like, I'm going to work that thing I did last night tonight again and try to. He was all about like, if he wasn't feeling like he wanted to talk about something, he didn't need the stage or that vanity or whatever comes with that.
Yeah.
He just needed a place to be honest where it's unadulterated, And I watched him do that for years in Boston. And by the way, he gave me the advice that changed my whole career, which was I was not doing comedy at the very beginning from maybe all the organic places inside of me. I was more like showman and less of like real solid ideas and coming from a perspective. And he said to me at the back of Nick's Comedy Stop one night, he was sitting there and he was shaking his head. I walked off stage. I knew my set was lackluster. He was already shaking his head. Yeah, he was sitting in the chair. He was the whole chair. He was shaking his head. And he said, and he reached out and he hit me. And he goes, man, he goes, you can't fuck with the truth, man. Be the truth. Be the truth. Whatever your truth is, whatever this hogwash is, man, bullshit. Like he just poo-pooed on it. And he was like, be the truth. And I started watching him and realizing like, what that really means is not like go up there and have to be like, I'm going to unveil society is no. It means like whatever it is that you're interested in, that makes you laugh, that you feel is compelling, you need to be talking about that.
Yeah.
Even if it's totally different from the rest of the show and you're going to probably be the outcast because it didn't match up with the tone of a show. You need to be that. Yeah. You need to bring a show to a grinding halt, possibly, because that's where you're coming from. You're coming as a person who wants to stop the establishment and go, what the fuck? What do you do? he was doing all that like 1993. It was amazing, man. Just coming up with that.
I remember right before we went to Scotland, we had to do a showcase to get the show.
Yeah.
So we had to do a video to send to Scotland for them to approve it. And I had a set list. I had like 12 jokes written down on a piece of paper. And I had like a like a cheap sheet.
Yeah.
And I had it. We did 2 shows. We taped 2 shows. And I put it on the stool for the first show. And I ran through my set list. And it was just, I did really bad. So then I go, by the way, I'd only been doing comedy legit maybe a year and 6 months. Oh. And so I go back and we're getting ready to do the second show. And I'm looking at the list. I'm like forwarding on the list. And Patrice goes, let me see that. And I go, okay.
Oh, no.
And he just picks it up and he tears it.
Oh,
He
my
goes,
God.
You're not that comic. And I went, what? And he goes, you are not the comic that, like some alt comic with a notebook. He goes, just tell the jokes. You know them.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just went up and then I did what I do now where you go, I don't really know what's going to go next, but I can figure it out in the moment. And it's a little more organic. That, and one time I bombed so hard. I used to have this thing. I still do it every now and then. I'll do a little prayer before I go on stage just to kind of center myself. But I did it in the back of the Boston Comedy Club. I did a little prayer and I bombed so hard. And I got off stage. Patrice is laughing hysterically, drinking a Shirley Temple. And he goes, you prayed to God for that shit? I go, yeah, and he goes, man, and God gave you, huh? Oh. That makes me beep. You should take that necklace off and burn it.
Oh my God,
I miss him.
Great.
Did you go to his funeral?
I did.
I didn't. Here's why I didn't. I found out he died. I was at Rusty's, the pet supplies, when I found out he died, and I was with my wife. We drove home. I was totally cool. Frosty called me and told me he passed.
Yep.
I got in my driveway and I started crying, and I felt silly that I was crying. And my wife goes, you should go to his funeral. And I go, no. She goes, why? I go, because Patrice wouldn't go to mine. He would go, I'm not spending $900 to go to Bert's funeral. And if I did spend $900 to go to his funeral, and he showed up out of that coffin and woke up, he'd go, Bert, how much you pay for your ticket? That's the first thing he'd fucking say. I go, if you knew that man, you should respect that man and your relationship with him, and go like, I know Patrice would go, Bert, the first thing he said, are you here to meet Chris Rock? That was the first thing he'd say to me. And I'd be like, well, a little bit. I mean, I know that there's going to be a lot of big names here. I'm hoping Bernie Mac's here. But what was his funeral like?
It was I was kind of in a haze about it, man. For me, it was like, all I could do that entire day was think about all the gigs that I'd done with him.
You guys legit,
like on the road together.
When we were in Scotland, he spoke so highly of you.
Yeah.
I was, and
he always looked out for me.
He always had your back.
He really did. Because he understood what I was beyond just like the perception from outsiders seeing this trajectory. He knew the hard work that went in. We were doing it together. We were at Stitches in Boston in 1991. We were in the Improv in Coconut Grove back in the day and doing gigs.
Oh my God!
All those shows, man.
That fucking place.
Yeah, I have a video that I've never shown anybody of Patrice auditioning for the Green Mile in my apartment, the old apartment, the Hacienda apartment, the shit apartment that I used to live in.
Shut the fuck
I have his. He was up for it. He was a good actor, man.
He was a great actor.
I have a dramatic audition at my house where he has to cry, and I have like 10 takes of Patrice doing this scene, and you go, this guy could have been a big actor, man. Huge.
I have a video of my buddy started a media company, when the internet was taking off, they created YouTube.
Yeah.
Not YouTube, but it was called Zoom Culture.
Okay.
And where you have a Zoom page, and it's like a YouTube page.
Okay.
And they needed content. And so they had a whole production house. And so they flew to New York, and they were like, we want to record some comics. We're obviously going to record you, but who do you think should be on it? I was like, Patrice O'Neill.
Yeah.
And I saw that the other day. It's a 30-minute,
oh man,
black and white. It's 30 minutes of Patrice just on stage, not giving a fuck, because he's like, what's an internet company?
Zoom Culture was what they went with. That is not a name that rolls off the tongue. If you want to make it in this industry, you got to be kind of rhymey, like YouTube or Scrubby Bubbles.
How come you never invested in any tech companies?
I just don't think it was on my radar. I loved utilizing them, but it's funny because years later people say, "Did you get a piece of MySpace?" It was like, I wish that I had met with them.
Those
early
guys,
on.
they were. How did you find MySpace?
I think I was already on like Friendster, and people on some AOL chat rooms were like hey, this is a place that, people can post pictures and comments. And I was like, all right, great. I just kind of thought it was another forum at first, like just a chat room, but quickly learned that it was becoming like a hub. God. It was like a hub. I remember being on there and like talking with like Green Day or somebody else, like in us writing back and forth being like, did your numbers go up 100,000 today? I'd be like, yeah. They'd be like, yeah, us too, man. Wow. People are just getting on there. And
that's so crazy.
The thing about the internet, this makes me sound really like the old bull on the hill, but I'm happy to be there, is that time, what was so glamorous about the internet was you could be in the middle of nowhere and feel connected with a guy in LA who was doing comedy, was making something of his life. It was like a portal for the first time to be with other people anywhere in the world. So it wasn't about your little town anymore. It was about the community of where this internet space is. So I felt that. It was like, it was a happening. It really felt like, there's a place where people are discovering things that they never would have seen because I'm not going to be in their hometown. But now you can feel like you're right next to me through this, social media. It was cool, man.
What were the first celebrity impressions where you were like, what? Like, I remember hearing stories like Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake were at the fucking Laugh Factory. They wanted to see Dane.
They used to come down to see my show, or Cameron Diaz, and I mean, all the, whatever, like some of my favorite bands, were coming out and seeing shows.
Who's the first
Limp
round?
Bizkits and all those guys.
Limp Bizkit.
Yeah.
Who were the first rounds of people where Boston Dane was like, shut the fuck up. You weren't Hollywood Dane yet, where you were like,
the first, I'm trying to think of what that would have been.
Because I remember when Brittany and Justin came in, you were still very cool with it. Like, you were like, oh, that's good. So you guys want to do a picture? Yeah. Like, you were very... You weren't as the way I'd be like, oh my God, you're both wearing denim.
This is probably not the answer you're expecting, but the first time I ever really geeked out was in '98 when I first came to LA for like the long haul. I'd gotten cast on my first TV show with Betty White was my grandmother. So I did a full season of television with. I loved Golden Girls. Golden Girls is still one of the funniest shows.
One of the funniest
to this day.
Yes,
hilarious, and she was hilarious. So. Quick funny story is I get on the show and I'm working with Betty White, and by the way, Marie Osmond was my mom, so I'm working with Marie Osmond and Betty White, and I'm learning. I'd never done a TV show, I'd never been on a TV set. I'm learning from Betty White, arguably one of the greatest sitcom actors of all time, and she told me something that now when you watch a Golden Girls repeat, one day we were having trouble remembering a line change. They had changed our scene around, and it was like we're shooting it in front of an audience in like 10 minutes, and they gave us a rewrite. She goes, you want to know a little trick that we used to do on Golden Girls? I go, yeah. And she said, anytime you see us in a scene, take a long sip out of our cup. We have our lines written on the inside of the mug.
Shut the fuck up.
Yep. So she's like, or the sugar packets. They were always holding sugar packets. Well, I'll tell you, Blanche. She said we'd write the lines on the sugar packet to remind us, all right, this is my next line right here. So we did that. We wrote our lines inside the mug, and there's a scene where we both take a sip, and me and Betty are both cheat sheeting our fucking scene. So that was like when I felt like, hey, this Boston kid is now working with somebody who I used to just watch on the boob tube, and now I'm standing here with the stuff that came later with like pop icons and all that. I'd already kind of felt like I was in at that point, so I wasn't as the only people that have ever blown me away is comedians.
Really?
Yeah. Comedians are the only people that I look at as like, to stand up on stage, and not just me doing it, standing up on stage alone with just your ideas and moving a room full of people, that's a beautiful thing, man.
It is a weird thing when you look at that versus acting. Like
totally
acting,
different. Yeah. Actors and yeah.
I have a hard time. I really don't. I don't think enjoy acting. Like I enjoy doing comedy.
I enjoy it for the reason of what it isn't, which is it's collaborative and it's me feeling like a small significant piece to a greater puzzle, and I like being utilized in that way.
You're a good actor, though.
Thanks, man.
No, but you're a good actor. Like when I act, like a great actor can get weird on camera, like Vincent D'Onofrio,
right.
Get weird, and you connect with them.
Yeah.
When I get weird, you just feel like you're watching someone get weird. You're like, I feel uncomfortable for both of us.
Maybe you just haven't been casting the right part, Bert.
Oh, maybe. I remember you called me one time. You were doing a sitcom, and you're like, "We're trying to cast my best friend. I think you're perfect for it. Here's how you should play it." And I fucked it up so bad. Man. I think I came in with an accent. I mean, I am still one of the worst. I'm a good actor if I play Bert Kreischer. I remember reading that script.
Himself, you should be in every credit.
Every script that ever, you were in development. How many times did you develop sitcoms? What, 10 times?
I don't know. Yeah.
Probably. Mm-hmm. I remember I get the script of your development of like whatever cast for that. And I remember the first like 5, it was like Dane comes in the room like a thunderstorm, and I was like, wow, I think they saw his act, they like it, but they don't know how to write it.
Dane comes in like a bull in a china shop. Yeah. Oh, you're so right.
I remember so many of those going like, hold on, wait, there's more to Dane than just a hello, motherfuckers.
Right. It's so funny because I remember for so many years being like, like getting the phone call, getting the offer, getting the part, and then you reach a point in your career, if you've been doing that for a little bit, where suddenly my friends were calling me and they would say, "Hey man, I don't know if you know about this role." I go, "No, I never heard of it." And they'd send me the sheet. It would say, "We're looking for a Dane Cook type."
Dude, I auditioned for
I'm not even getting my own type anymore.
I got every Dane Cook type. They're like, "You guys look alike, so like you'd be good." And I go, hold on. By the way, I don't know how to act. Like, if you're really looking for Dane, go to Dane.
Oh my god.
What was your favorite comedy you did?
Best Friend's Girl.
Really?
Yeah.
Jessica Biel?
Nope, that was.
Which one was Jessica Biel?
That was Kate Hudson. Jessica Biel was kind of like no, that was Alba.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking of. Jessica Alba.
Alba.
Sorry.
Yeah. My Best Friend's Girl was because I filmed it in Boston and I produced it with Lionsgate. So here I was coming home to Boston, producing a film that I was also starring in, and also more than the other movies. And this is something that why people sometimes say, "Why don't you do more comedies now?" Or "Why aren't you doing?" Well, the truth is, I did a bunch, and to varying degrees of success. But except for My Best Friend's Girl, I didn't really have the same kind of input that I did my stand-up. You know what I mean? I was just a hired hand. And when you're the center of something, this is why Sandler does it so well. You're the strong center of something. It's built around you, and it works around your strengths. And that was the first movie I did that I felt like really worked around because I was a part of it from the inception.
Yeah.
So now when I make movies, it's like I want to do things that are more organic to like the kind of humor I also like or where I'm at in my life now.
Yeah.
So it was a learning process, like anything. Had some good high watermarks. I don't always look at everything I did as like, like the stand-up that I can look at and I'm pretty proud of most of the lineage of my stand-up, but the acting stuff is hit or miss,
It's crazy because you
But my role coming up this year, I have a movie coming out May 14th.
I just saw the trailer.
Dude,
I think
best thing I've ever
done. You and
done.
that kid?
Yeah. Levi Miller. He plays my son. If you loved Mr. Brooks, if you love Dan in real life, if you like me in things that are off kilter and a little darker, this is my favorite opportunity I've ever had to play a character.
Really? What's the story? Can you talk about it?
It's a little bit convoluted, only in terms of I don't want to give it away. I'm a father who, for a series of very dramatic reasons, I kidnap my own son. I take him, against his mother's will, and then we go on seemingly a bit of a road trip adventure together, and it's dark.
Really?
It's Levi Miller is a huge star. This kid who plays my son is like, you watch him in this movie and you're seeing somebody who's going to be like the next DiCaprio, or he could take it as far as he wants. Kid's amazing.
When was the last project that you wanted? Like you're it panicked, like when you were young again, because I'm sure you've gotten to a place where you're like, you get projects brought to you and you're like, oh yeah, it seems interesting. If it works out, that's great. But one that you were like I heard the story about Elijah Wood, who was in The Hobbit, really wanted to play The Hobbit, so he shot himself in the backyard dressed like a Hobbit.
Oh wow!
And and they said no, and then Peter Jackson saw it and was like, I like the fact that he shot himself like a Hobbit.
Well, I shot the audition for Mr. Brooks in my trailer while I was doing Employee of the Month.
Really?
Yeah. Costner had seen my comedy. He knew that I was dipping into some dramatic stuff, and he reached out and he said, "Have Dane go on tape for this and send it to me." So I went in my trailer. I worked on the scene the best I could, sent it to him, and then he called me up and he goes, you got a pretty gnarly death scene in this movie. Have you ever done a death scene? I said, no. And he's like, I loved your tape, but this by the way, this Costner, The Untouchables, is on the phone with me.
Dude.
Dances with Wolves and Field of Dreams is talking to me, and I'm just like, God, this is like a hero of mine. And he's saying to me, he's like, do you feel like you're, you can step into this? Do you feel like, you're going to put the same commitment as I've seen you doing your stand-up? I said, I said, I wouldn't be on this phone call with you if I didn't know I could exceed your expectations. He goes, you got it. And he gave me the job right there. And we went and we did the death scene. He comes up to me that night and he goes, you have one take. We can't redo it. We can't do the whole, he cut my neck with a shovel.
Yeah.
He goes, we can't redo it. We can't, he goes, one take. This was my first death scene ever in a really gritty movie. And it's one of my proudest moments of performance.
You're amazing in that movie.
Oh,
You're
thanks,
literally
man.
amazing in that movie.
Yeah, people dig that movie, man. It's got kind of a cult, little cult following.
You've got you've got a great, you can play dark very well.
Yeah, and you know what? As a person who grew up loving guys like Jerry Lewis, who did King of Comedy, I watched one of the silliest, most absurd guys that also ended up being a mentor and a very close friend of mine in his last several years. I was really close with Jerry. I talked to him almost every week. Really? And I would talk to him about dramatic stuff because he had such a great, he had an amazing insight on like all things performance, but I wanted to be like that. I wanted to, Robin Williams and Good Will Hunting, to me, I fucking love the scene.
Yeah, Robin Williams is great at dark.
Yeah, Garp, The World According to Garp. I mean, to me, I feel like comedians more than anybody are capable of so much more than what people see on the surface, right? Because we make it look easy because of what we're doing up there, and you fucking seems like it's your footloose and fancy free. They don't know that the years of dedication. We are some of the most diligently. We're like blacksmiths. We're in there pounding lead, man, for a lot of years to get to a place where we make it look like it's nothing.
Yeah.
What's
the one thing that maybe people don't know about you that I do know about you is that through your entire career, you've always come up with shows, be them game shows, reality shows, like always. You always had a pitch. You always had an idea.
Yeah.
What's your one show that when you were younger, you thought this is a fucking home run? If they just do it, they never greenlit it, and you're like, fuck you, I still stand by this idea. My show is Stranded and Branded. I get left on a desert island with nothing but corporate integrations to sustain me for 1 month. So literally,
wait, was this a reality show?
This is what I want to do this show forever. No one will pay for it.
Stranded and
Branded.
Stranded.
So I'm on a desert island, and literally they're like, Maytag sent you 100 dishwashers. And so then 100 dishwashers get delivered to the island, and I got to figure out how to make a shelter out of dishwashers.
What did I try to do once? I think I tried to actually pitch Dane Cook Live from the Moon. I wanted to do the first comedy show in space and potentially actually do it on the moon. Yeah, and we actually took a meeting on this, and in the meeting they were like, this would fucking cost like $1 billion. Are you crazy? That's how like ludicrous I was at that point. I'm like, I can do anything. I can do comedy on the moon. But I did pitch it.
I remember hearing a pitch brought to me by Barry, I'm sure. And he's like, Papa, would you be interested in doing stand-up and Dane Cook shoots you with a paint pellet gun? And
what? That was in my show. That was right. That was in my stand-up show. That was in my a scripted show that I did. I remember that scene. That was another pilot I did that never, we do a lot of stuff that never sees the light of day. But
where do you see this business going? I mean, as someone who's always been in front of the business.
Okay, so my goal, that's an interesting question, man, and something I really like talking to young people that I think are entrepreneurial. So if you're listening, my goal in like 2000, 2001 was this. My like credo was, I want to be in everybody's home, meaning like on your computer. I want to be in everybody's home. I want everybody to have access to me.
There was I'm certain one day in your life that you were actually in everybody's home.
I felt it. I know those days. It was there was a good 4-year chunk before things started getting way dramatic and cuckoo, where it was like I really felt like I was in the sweet spot for a good amount of time. So I would say to people now, back then I would say I want to be in your home, and now the mentality is I want to be in everybody's pocket.
Yeah.
You want to be in everybody's pocket. You want everybody to know if they need that outlet, they can come to your podcast, they can come to your show, they can come to, because that then is circumventing, hey, I need to be on this hit show to be relevant. Relevance is not being on a hit show. Relevance is not just being on Saturday Night Live. It's an avenue. People on Saturday Night Live, very talented. I know a lot of those people. But it's not the forum or the place that you need to have a springboard. What you need to be doing is cultivating ideas and ways to be in everybody's pocket. And what I would say to that is, example, 4 years ago, there was an app. It's not around anymore. If somebody's listening and you want to put your time into inventing a new version of this app, here's what it was. It was called Say Now. It was bought out by Google. You know this, right?
I was on Say Now.
Okay. Say Now was amazing because when you logged into your Say Now account, let's say I had 1 million followers.
Tell everyone what Say Now was.
Okay, so Say Now was an app that basically was almost like a rolling radio station or rolling podcast where you could hit go live and you could record as much audio like this as you want. And when you hit send, whoever was following you, 100% of your followers got an alert of the audio. 100%. So when I would put tickets on my Say Now, I would hit send. You could text. It would send to everybody. 1 million people would get a text. Hey, it's the middle of the night. How you doing, everybody? My thing is going to air on Comedy Central in 20 minutes if anybody wants to watch. 100%. The stats today, social media, it's like, I think it's less than 6% of eyes will ever see what you post because it's streaming and rolling and nobody's seeing it. This app, for a year's time that we were on there, every single thing that I ever sent made it to every single fan that wanted to hear what I had to say. And I haven't found something to this day. TV, nothing does it like that. And what was also cool about that is you could hit go live and you would see recorded audio messages from somebody and they'd say, hey, what's up, man? I'm in Minnesota. Saw your tour here last year. You coming back? You could hit reply and everyone could hear your reply. So it was like a podcast that you could do anytime
Very
you
interactive,
wanted.
yeah.
That's how you are in everybody's pocket. But and this is even probably more important piece of the equation than even the dome of what we're talking about. There's only one word that keeps you here and that keeps I here. There's one word that any arena or doesn't matter, whatever gig, if you're not this word in this industry, it's not going to last, no matter what technology you have, and that's funny. If you're not funny, you can get all the people in the world to look at you by clapping your hands or starting a fire. If you're not working hard on your craft, you're not going to keep people in the room. They might look once, but they're going to jet. So to bring it full circle, the feeling relevant and the resilience that I talked about earlier, that comes when the talent you've worked is coupled with being innovative with whatever technology or whatever's next is what you should be looking into. That's my 2 cents on it.
Well, you've always been whatever's next is going to be you've always been the first one on the thing. Like, yeah,
I'm just interested. It's like, I'm on Gizmodo every day. I love tech. I just love reading about all that stuff.
I was, as you said that, I thought here, to further the conversation we've had about consumer first as opposed to artist first, consumer, what we want. I'll tell you what I want. This is what I want. I don't know how to make this. I don't even know what this is. I want one more app to click on. So like I'm in a 3-app circle.
Okay.
I'm in news, Twitter, Instagram.
Yes.
It's 5 apps. Email, text, news, Twitter, Instagram.
Okay.
So I go through those. And I feel depressed in the morning when I wake up and I've gotten through all mine and I'm still out of bed. I go, so I got nothing left for the day. I just did all my fucking fun. All my pellets, all my treats are used for the day. What if you did an app? What if you created your app that constantly was uploaded with things like news and like, what if you did your own TV show that was uploaded every 5 hours,
right,
for another 10 minutes of content every single fucking day? I wonder, that's just an idea, everybody.
Well, it's like what you're looking at is, and I think a lot of celebrities with Instagram use this, like a network that it's Bert TV. It's really like people, and by the way, it doesn't necessarily just all need to be content you're prolific in.
Just fun shit I like.
It can be stuff that you like.
Yeah,
this, you're a tastemaker, you know, and we are, in a sense, like, you know, what we talk about that we like and what's hip and what's cool, like people will tend to be like, oh man, I'll check that out. I like Bert.
You're basically pulling all your shit.
I like this.
That you like into this app where you go like, hey, you could go to Twitter, but you can come here. I found all the good shit.
Right, because Twitter is is the opposite. It's like everybody's being siphoned into this one column,
and it's hard to find the good shit.
It's really hard, and it becomes like because it's everybody's. Then suddenly it becomes like the cool kids are the ones that get the retweets and the clicks and You want something that's singular to your experience for your fans. So I'm with you on that. The idea of that in a Say Now, Google bought it and they turned it into like Google Voice, but it wasn't in any way the same.
There were downsides to Say Now. Like I remember because they could reply to you, and a lot of times they were like, what bands would do, because bands would use Say Now.
Yep.
They go out. I remember this band. I wish I remembered their name. They came out and they were like, hey, you want to Say Now? We were doing an event, Frosty, because Frosty was big into Say Now. Mm-hmm. He got me on to Say Now. He got Bobby on to Say Now. And he was like, and we were at this event in the Meadowlands, and Frosty was like, yeah, Say Now is great. And this band was about to go on. They're like, well, do you do Say Now? And I go, yeah. They're like, you should get your Say Now number out there. And I was like, I don't know. What am I going to just tell everyone to text me? And they go, oh, no, this is much better watch. So they go out and they're like, hey, do me a favor, everybody. My brother's over in Afghanistan, and he would love to get a text from you. Everyone, text his number right now and say you love him, okay? And then they were like fucking 10,000 people. And then they came off stage like, just got all those numbers.
Oh, man, no. No, that's not how you do it.
Oh, but I remember getting Say Now numbers or whatever.
Yeah.
And my daughter left us Say Now at like fucking 3 a.m, and some guy called with irate. Listen, buddy, I saw you one fucking time. I signed up for this stupid number. I don't know how to get off of it. I don't need your fucking daughter calling me at 3 a.m. And then I never used Say Now after that. I never used it once.
Well, it wasn't around very long either.
Yeah, it was.
But for a hot minute, I was like, wow, I've never, even MySpace, like, yeah, I had access to a lot of people, but 100% of eyes seeing what it is that you're trying to express.
Yeah.
That to me is very interesting. Something in that space, I know Instagram does it to some extent, but again, it's like, if you're not a tastemaker, if you're not somebody who has the 50 million, people or whatever, it doesn't feel as important to you. But I think that there's something in the middle of this, what we're talking about, that could be the next incarnation of what people should be using to get their name out there.
How long does this tour go on?
All year. And then I probably shouldn't say this, but like, it's already been so successful that we're already talking about next year and everything else overseas.
Nice.
And
overseas.
Yeah. So all year long, and then we're adding some dates now, and then ends at Radio City, which I'd never done. Well, never done Radio City Music Hall.
It's a little letdown from Madison Square Garden.
No, no, not at all.
Radio. I saw someone was there recently, and it looked beautiful.
Chappelle?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
Chappelle's got an interesting career.
Chappelle's got an amazing career.
It's interesting more than it's amazing.
Well,
it's interesting,
right? But look at it, like he's in so many lanes. You know what I mean? And talk about somebody who did it, on their own recognizance. That's an amazing thing that
you guys started at the same time, right?
Well, he was a little bit before me because Dave was already like on stage when I got to New York and I was 19. He was like 16 or 15, so he was already like being brought into nightclubs, and you're like, who's this kid? And then suddenly you're like, oh my god, he's like
was it clear that he was who he is? Was it clear right away? Was he just like he's really funny, but he's like,
I'll tell you, I was on a small college tour where I think for a few days it was just Dave and I would open up for Dave, and then Dave was closing the show, and I would go up, and at that time I'm bombastic, and it's just like insane energy. I'm sweating from every part of my body. I leave the stage, and Dave would go on. I'd watch him. And he would do that thing where he'd be like, yeah, what's going on? Hey, man, you guys good? Everybody's good. I was thinking about this thing, man. He'd take this long pause, and he'd pull. You'd feel him pulling his confidence and ability to I think he even said years later, I'm going to paraphrase a great quote that Dave said, the power's in the silence, man. The power of comedy is in the silence leading up to the laugh or the story.
Wow.
And he was doing that at like teens, captivating a crowd after I had gone on and spun the whole fucking room into a frenzy.
Yeah.
He'd go out there and he would downshift it in the most elegant, inspirational way and kill. A different kind of killing, but killing. It was amazing.
Fucking.
Yeah. Yeah, he had that, man. And he still, that's the thing about Dave now. He got to a place that very early that is where I feel like I finally have accomplished something in my life, which is he was always so present. He's always been so present. And even now, it's like, it's not an act, it's Dave. He just exists up there to talk about some of these things that he's formulating. And I always looked at that and said, I want to be a person that I'm a showman. I love putting on a show.
Yeah.
But I want the ability to downshift elegantly and do whatever the fuck I want for 10 minutes and not worry about the biggest laugh or the most important thing of, because I know I'm going to get there. Now I'm in a sandbox.
Yeah.
And my whole, like, I don't know how this, I found this interesting. How you visualize comedy, I'd love to hear, because for me, it's a box. I always see it like as a sandbox. And then there's 4 corners, and those are 4 of my like high-powered ideas that I've been cultivating. And then there's a grid, and I see this as like Minority Report that I see. And then I've got a few things inside that I know are like hot points. But I keep it in this grid because I want to linger every night. And I don't want to stick to any one point. So I've never written anything down in comedy. I've never written my set down. I never planned before I go on stage in front of 20,000 people. I didn't know what I was going to do. Vicious Circle, there's 40% that I made up on that special.
Really?
Because I see this quadrant, and I've always wanted to live in that place of, man, I can just be funny and real and present.
Yeah.
And so now it's like, now I'm playing with all the different tools to be able to, put on the shows that I'm doing now. And the reaction's been, honestly, like, I'd knock on wood if there was something right here. Amazing. I'm so happy.
I always view it as a boat.
A boat?
It's a boat. And I have a boat full of ideas.
Okay.
It's almost like, and so then my goal is to swim away from the boat as far as I can get.
Yep.
And if need be, I can always swim back to the boat.
Okay.
But my goal is to swim outside the boat and be around the boat and not need the boat. Like,
has this boat thing been?
I've always thought of comedy as
you're being serious.
I'm being dead serious.
Oh, I thought you were just being.
No, as soon as you said a quadrant, I went, oh, I have a.
Love it.
I've always looked at it as like, I got a boat. I got a boat full of stuff that I know works. Like if I need to, like tools that help me get fish.
Yes.
But I want to get it. I want to be as far away from the boat and look back at the boat, knowing full well I can swim back to the boat if I need to.
That's amazing. I mean, that's why I thought it was interesting to ask you, and I'm glad that is real, because it's mutual but very different. And it's that idea of like,
when you said quadrant, I went, no, I get that.
Yeah,
I totally fucking get that.
When I looked at the guys that I loved growing up, they had a performance, they had an act, they had a certain mentality that was showman. I like that. But I always loved people that seemingly could just be in the moment.
It's like when you said that, I thought, I bet Dave Chappelle's the way he looks at it, he goes, oh, I walk into the desert for 40 days. And then whatever happens. Yeah.
I mean, he's, listen, he's one of the best. If you're going to give the heavyweight title to somebody, he might be.
I think it goes in and out. I think,
well,
obviously.
I mean, yes.
Obviously, because like there's times I remember when Rock had it, and then and you had it. Chappelle had it,
but I've never been touted, dude. My whole career, I've never been on a Rolling Stone list of top 100 comedians.
No,
0. I've never, ever gotten any kind of. For me, it was like the acclaim that I always felt like I got when I think about my career is fans. I never think about. I've had the luxury of being on a Billboard chart or whatever because I did that. But I've never been the reverence that I have and the way I speak about certain comics that I loved growing up. Like I get that from fans, but I don't get that from the mainstream media. I always felt like the most successful alt comic ever is how I felt. I really did, because I grew up in that. That, coming out of Catch Rising Star, I used to watch those guys. So I felt like I was more of an alt storyteller than I was.
It's so funny. Gary Goldman told me that to me one time. He goes, I always feel like you and Dane are more alt comics. And I went, I don't see that at all. And he goes, well, by the way, I know I'm going to hurt people's feelings. But he goes, you guys are doing what they want to do, but in mainstream rooms. He's like, what they want to do is be different and tell stories and not, and that's what you guys are doing. You're just doing it in mainstream rooms.
Sure.
I was so close with Gary for so fucking long, especially leading up to right when I had kids.
Yeah.
And obviously I have kids, everything. But you think you'll ever have kids?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, I look forward to it, man. It's the one thing that when you said what are my regrets, actually it's away from comedy. It's not, it's not so much what I didn't do in comedy. I thought I'd have a family at 30.
Really?
Yeah, I really did. I really did. But I was so like caught up in my own career and life.
Just some of the top grade pussy in this town. You've gotten some of the hottest.
I'm not going to be lewd and lascivious, but let's just say I've been around the block a couple of times.
Oh.
When I was a young single man coming up in Hollywood.
Have you ever fucked a celebrity where you were
I'm
like,
not going to go
come
there.
on, just
My girlfriend now would be like, babe, what the fuck?
where you were like, you
can't,
that's
that's the thing. You
can
can't
I get your autograph?
You can't. There was a joke in my routine years ago, and this is actually very true, where I was, and I can quote this because it was in my comedy repertoire, as opposed to me just talking out of school. And I fooled around with this very lovely, very talented young woman, and afterwards I had a headshot under the pillow, and I pulled it out and was like, "Do you want me to make this out to you or just sign it?" So I had like a signed headshot. And she laughed. Thank God she laughed. But yeah, no, when I was a younger cad in my formative years, I had some fun, man, out here.
Oh.
Got some stories.
You did Hollywood. You did. I mean, like if you look
You did Hollywood. I didn't do Hollywood.
No, you did Hollywood right. When you look at Hollywood, you did Hollywood right. You came out here young. You busted your ass. Yep. You had fun. You didn't get caught up in drugs.
Right.
You had the most success a comedian can get in their industry.
Yeah, it was fun, man.
You made movies, you made TV shows, you created, you directed, you've done everything. It's like I remember there was a guy, Ari Sandel. I don't know why I remember his name so well. Ari Sandel.
Yep.
And he won an Oscar for short film. And he said, "I would be remiss." I didn't know what the word remiss was. My wife goes, "It means you regret not saying something." And I went, "Oh."
You couldn't put that together.
I didn't know
by the
what
word
the fuck
remiss?
it was. No, I was like, "What the fuck's remiss?" I'm always remiss, I think. And so then I go,
"That's your new special."
Yeah, remiss. And I said, "Oh, I'm a remiss about a lot of shit." And she was like, "Really?" I go, "Yeah." Like one of my things is like I think I would be remiss if I didn't make a movie in Hollywood while I lived in Hollywood.
Right.
I don't know if it's gonna happen. I think I'm cool with the remiss. But you've done this business. Like I graduated college, no fucking regrets. 7 years, number one party animal in the country. Oliver Stone optioned the rights to my life, and I go,
yeah,
I'm good. And now I feel like in a weird way, you're getting to go back to college. Like you're coming back and doing theaters that probably I want to say you probably leapfrogged out of and never got the experience.
I never got to play these places.
Yeah, and these are the fucking
best.
These are the ones that were created.
The best.
Dude.
I it's like who would have thunk? But I'm like,
it's like what a beautiful blessing to be in a place in your career where you feel seasoned, you're well accomplished, you're beyond competent, you're inarguably one of the most talented guys in our profession, and you're getting to like just go, I'm gonna go have fun now.
Right.
I'm gonna go do all the shit, which is, by the way, Chicago Theater is a I'm doing it in November, hashtag secret time. But I don't know if I'll sell the whole thing up, but I'm doing it in November. But that's like that's for all of us, that's feather in our hat, and you're getting to go and almost really enjoy yourself. I'm so happy for you, man.
Oh man, thank you. It took a minute, it really did, to finally, there was a lot of years where I described it like I was either ruminating about what I needed to do next or wanted to do next, or I was beating myself up about my past and how I felt growing up and how like low that I was for so many years that I really wasn't present. In the last like 5-10 years, I'm like, oh man, I'm in the healthiest, happiest place. I'm past a lot of that crazy, insane drama, losing my family, all that stuff that happened, but it's informed who I am today on stage. And it gives me that, I love to, use terms like this, but it's like that. I feel like I finally have that pedigree. I know you said 10 years ago, and I was doing some great stuff 10 years ago. I'm very proud. I'm not ashamed or embarrassed about anything in my comedy career. Maybe some haircuts or frosted tips might have been a misstep. But
it's better than going bald.
Truth be told, I love that it's all led up to this now. And like the whatever the groundswell of goodwill that's come out of this particular tour, it's I don't take it for granted. You know what I mean?
I think it's the ebb and the flow. It's like it is really hard to be the biggest comic in the world. I mean, look what's going on with Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart cannot stop stepping in shit only because, and by the way, Kevin's not a bad person. Right. And he's not a vindictive, mean person. He's just a person. Right. But he's been so big that it's like there's a group of people waiting for him to fail.
Well, that's why I told you the introduction to success is an introduction to a lot of resentment, jealousy, people that just hate you, not into what you're doing,
and that people that get excited to hate.
Well, yeah,
They go,
that's
this
a
is it.
culture.
I'm so excited to have someone to hate now.
Yeah. It's also a mutual collaboration, just like your fans are a mutual collaboration of like, let's lock arms and enjoy Bert together. It's like that's all Hater Nation is as well.
And then he just takes his shirt off,
Elvis Presley
says the same story every time.
Elvis Presley did the greatest thing in the history of this conversation, and it's something that I've never forgotten. And I have I have a couple of items from Elvis, because Al Dotley, my tour manager, he was working with Elvis the night he died. Al Dotley gave me the last 2 tickets to the last Elvis show, framed as a thank you for being a part of the tour. He also gave me a couple other items, and one of the items is, this is amazing. It's a pin that you could buy back in the day, and it said, "I hate Elvis," and it sold millions of dollars. You know who made those pins? Elvis fucking Presley. And I said, that's the career I want. I want to use all of it. The good and the bad. I don't care. I'll be Darth Vader. I'll be Luke Skywalker. I don't give a fuck. Elvis Presley made "I hate Elvis" pins. Amazing. Oh, I love it. It's true. That's you can check that online too.
Dude, that's a perfect way to end this interview.
Love it.
Dude, I love you, brother. I'm so
Bert,
happy for you.
Thank you, man. I'm grateful to be here, dude.
Dude, thank you for
Congratulations on everything, and thanks for sharing it with me.
Dude, fuck yeah.
You got it, bud. This is fucking great, man. You're really good, dude.